Good evening. Welcome to WFUZ TV. I'm Blair Castro, and I'm here with Thomas Jenkins. Today we have Mr. Brett Gar in the studio with us today. He's running for Baldwin County Commission, District 4. Mr. Gar, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Blair, and thank you, Thomas,
Yes, sir.
for having me.
Wanted to get into it and ask a little bit about your experience and your background. What do you believe qualifies you to be the best person for this position on the commission?
I retired from Volkert Engineering 5 years ago after 29 years, and I ran the environmental department for Volkert, and that gave me a unique look at how funding works through the Federal Highway Administration for infrastructure, roads and bridges projects. And through ALDOT, most of our clients were either municipalities or the states. And understanding that process, I felt like gave me a big advantage on understanding how to help with infrastructure, not to mention working in the environmental compliance business. My job was to make sure whatever we built was done in accordance with federal and state law. And I think that's a good fit for being a county commissioner.
I would think so too, especially because, as you are aware, and everyone is, there's stuff being built all the time. Development's going up, housing going up, commercial going up. It just seems to be nonstop. I guess as a criticism, or, what's your assessment of, do you think the commission needs to sort of have someone with that background in terms of, do you think they're in compliance generally, or do you see it kind of being out of control?
I think we were on the verge of overdevelopment in some areas, and other areas, they could probably use a little to keep the local economy going. But overall, Baldwin County's obviously, there's a lot of development from along the Eastern Shore, Foley, Gulf Shore, Orange Beach. And we just got to be careful. We can do too much. And I think the public is probably feels like we are.
What is your take on these solar farms that are coming up in Stockton and surrounding areas, especially from an environmental standpoint?
And the solar field site is a very unique site, not only because it's so big, but it's located in the headwaters of the Tensas River, which is an outstanding Alabama water.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of wetlands. There's Flat Creek, Rains Creek, Aiken Creek, and a lot of high-quality wetlands associated with those tributaries. And because the site is so hilly, it would be hard to grade that site without substantial impacts to the adjacent streams.
I've heard that, yeah.
And there's not a lot of organic material in those soils, so I hear that they proposed to have it grazing for livestock, and it's mostly clay and sand, and you're not going to grow pasture on clay and sand. So I'm not sure how that's proposed to work, but overall, there's got to be a lot better location. I'm not against solar energy, but that's not the right place for it.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing is it's not just wetlands, but like you said, high quality wetlands that need to just be left untouched from the sound of it.
Yes, those wetlands. In fact, I did an assessment of those wetlands about 20 years ago with Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife Service, EPA, Department of Conservation for another project, and the quality of wetlands were as high as it can get, really, without being tidal wetlands. Very pristine.
Yeah.
No invasive species, good biodiversity. good buffers. So we've got to find that there's got to be a better location that's flat.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be in Baldwin County either.
Sure. Agreed.
I think I had no idea there was even a natural spring out there until recently. We went out there and filmed our little documentary and really got to see more of Stockton area. And it is one of the most, ecologically sort of special areas within the county, I think.
Yeah.
And people just don't recognize it. It's sort of a hidden gem, and maybe they want to keep it that way, which I understand. But even here on the beach, I feel like we've just seen it be overdeveloped to the point where we had Joe Freeman in here the other day talking about how when he was a teenager, the sand dunes were so big you couldn't see beyond them. People could hide behind the dunes and stuff, and now none of that exists anymore. It's just condos, embassy suites, etc. So I think that's something that's very important to people that are natives of Florida, Alabama, the coastal area. We don't want to see the place we call home turned into. I know we need tourism, for sure, but we don't want to see it turned into just concrete sky.
Right. I agree. If it wasn't for Gulf State Park, you would be hard pressed to see the Gulf and along if you're driving along the 181.
Yeah.
180. It's 180.
Yes.
Okay. And we need more open spaces. I would hate to see everything developed and be concrete and asphalt. I think when you're driving along the beach roads and you drive into the park, you feel like, whoa, that's awesome. I would like to see more of that. I don't think it makes people feel good. And when they come here, they're not coming to see asphalt and concrete. They're coming to see the beaches and sand dunes, and they also want to see inland too. The history, the heritage of Baldwin County, not just the beaches.
Yeah.
So I want to not only on the beaches, but in inland too, keep the open spaces for people to see as well.
I think Fort Morgan is one of those areas too that's a very untouched sort of area, sort of like Stockton, but on the opposite end, that people really want to preserve its character and stop some of that development. As a commissioner, it's interesting because while you're elected to represent a certain geographic district, you really represent the whole county.
Right.
And you guys got asked a question before at one of the other forums, which I thought was interesting, was how do you see yourself when it comes to responding to people from all over the huge county that we have?
Well, obviously people in Fort Morgan have a lot different concern than people in Stockton or Elsinore. You've got to listen, see what the concerns are, and try to address them for those areas. One shoe doesn't fit everybody, and we just have to meet with them and see what their concerns are in those locations, and try to assist where we can, and not, like I said, don't try to make one shoe fit everything, because it doesn't.
So you currently live in Magnolia Springs, is that correct?
I do.
How long have you been there, and where are you, I guess, originally from? Are you from this area, and what brought you here?
I'm the 5th generation from Baldwin County. Lived in Magnolia Springs for all of those years, with the exception of 4 years in Auburn. I have been in the Magnolia Springs area. Right now, I live about 400 feet from where I grew up, right next to my parents' house, on the south side of Magnolia River.
That's a really pretty area out there, too. And I think people forget about that. Every time I drive by, I'm like, wow, I forgot this existed, too. And Bon Secours, Wildlife Refuge, there's a lot of stuff all over the county and the state that people... I'm always impressed because I'm from Pensacola. When I came here, how much there really is to offer here in South Alabama.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily take advantage of all the ecotourism opportunities we have in this county. I've had a lot of people do, but you never hear anybody talk about Perdido River Basin, and there's about 30,000 acres that are publicly owned in the Perdido River Basin, Weeks Bay Foundation and Preserve. There's obviously America's Amazon, the Kensaw, the refuge down here, Gulf State Park, and Grand Creek in Foley. We got a lot of great parks in this county, and I think there's an opportunity there that we're not taking full advantage of. So I'd love to see more of that done.
I think so too. It's funny that you mentioned ecotourism because that was going to be my question. So, here on the beach in particular, of course, there's a lot of tourism and it's centered around, there's some festivals and things to do, but there is a growing demand for people who care about the environment, want to see these like last sort of preserved areas of our country that are really into like natural parks and going kayaking and going hiking and, doing, foraging, looking through different plants and wildlife, birding. Like that is a huge industry that actually generates a ton of income. So I would like to see us take advantage of that more. There's just so much there. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I agree 100%. A lot of people may not remember the oil spill in 2010, but I was here for that, and I was right in the middle of trying to help work the cleanup. The economy of Baldwin County is very dependent upon a healthy environment, and people don't really understand how much unless you really remember the oil spill and what happened during that time. You really can't appreciate it. Quality of life in Baldwin County is dependent upon a good healthy environment. So.
I was in Escambia County during the oil spill and working with some contract work with the county itself and trying to, procure the Triumph funds and going through that process. And I remember when it all washed up and it was still an ongoing devastation that, 15 years later or 16 years later is like, there's still Triumph funds out there that people are tapping into because it's affected us for generations to come.
Yep. I think, I did a lot of the restoration work when I was working at Volkert. All of the coastal states got a lot of money to do restoration work, and that money is continuing to be pumped into the environment and environmental restoration work all along the coast. And I think that money runs out in about 2035, if I'm not mistaken. Really? And Gulf State Park is one of those projects. The trail system that was paid for with oil spill money.
Yeah. Do you have experience in navigating, like helping a system, not necessarily a county government, but do you have experience in navigating, helping get money or funding for different initiatives?
Yes. I've worked on a lot of grants in my career, and most of these municipalities, not just in Baldwin County, but everywhere, are dependent upon grants for a lot of the road work they do. In our case, I was on the town council in Manatee Springs for 4 years, and most every project we did in Manatee Springs was dependent upon some grant money. So in order to get funds from Federal Highway and ALDOT for municipalities, you have to get an approved environmental assessment. And until that document is approved by Federal Highway, the funds don't flow. So that's what I did a lot of. So I'm very familiar with that process.
I've been, as a citizen, in no official capacity, talking to my city officials about trying to get different programs started. And I always hear back, we don't have money for that. We don't have money for that. But here, let's take out a $20 million loan to expand the airport. Let's take out a bajillion dollars to do a pedestrian bridge. But I feel like the programs and things, even I propose stuff that I say, you don't need funding. Here's a grant. Here's this, here's that, here's X, Y, Z, where it won't come out of the city budget. And I bring forth solutions. I feel like I get shot down a lot. And these other really big ideas that, maybe they're great, but I just feel like they're very, very hefty. they're overlooking the small things and focusing on like very big builds. So I guess my question would be, how do you feel about prioritizing funding, and how do you get input from people to determine that?
I like to grade the infrastructure, and when I say grade, I mean give it a value. Like this road gets a B, this road gets a C, this road gets a D, and explain why it's getting those grades, and have a report in your hand that you can show to the public saying this road is going to be our first priority because it got an F, and it's not safe for the public to drive on, and we have the funds to fix it. So that's our first one, and our next one is going to be this one that got a D. We might have to skip C because it's still safe. It's not like we want it, but the one that scored A, they got an A. It only could take a little bit to fix it, and we have enough money to do that. So we're going to do that one this year, and then next year we got enough money to do C, and we'll go back to C and fix C. Mm-hmm. So I hope I answered your question, but
yeah, that makes sense.
I think you need to grade your infrastructure. You need to know how much it's going to cost to do what you need to do to keep the infrastructure safe for the public.
Well, when it comes to AlDOT, what is the magic formula to make them come down and fix a traffic signal timing issue?
Synchronization. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I have the answer to that. I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm an environmental guy. That's an environmental document to get the money.
Right.
But as far as getting the lights synchronized to where you don't have to stop at every one,
right. That's
I would refer you to transportation engineers. Mm-hmm. So I can't answer that one.
Yeah, you were talking about grading the infrastructure. Are they currently doing that? Is there a way to see like how they propose that?
Some municipalities do. I know AlDOT does that, but I can't speak for every municipality. I think it's a good idea. You can hire, if you don't have staff to do it, you can hire a consultant to do it pretty cheap, to go out and do an assessment of your infrastructure and tell you what it's going to take to get it where it needs to be.
Yeah, I've been to quite a few meetings and I've never actually seen that. It is a good idea, and I'm sure there are places doing it, but I just hadn't actually put eyes on it. So now I'm interested to go look.
Well, I know Gulf Shores does it. I know Foley does it. I know Magnolia Springs does it. I can't speak for anybody else. That's the ones I'm sure of.
Okay. Another question that I seem to hear a lot about in terms of priorities is the public safety here in the county. As a commissioner, what would you do to help, support public safety?
Well, regarding public safety, I always worry about our firefighters, and most of them are volunteers. There's a few that, like I think Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Foley, the bigger towns obviously have paid staff, but there's an awful lot in the county that are volunteers, and we approve all these subdivisions, not just in the county, but in the municipalities too. And I don't know how much emphasis or how much input the first responders are included in that process. And that's one thing I would really like to see changed or improved on, is including the first responders and the schools for that matter. That's infrastructure. To me, the school system and the first responders are infrastructure, just like a road or a bridge or a sewer line. Mm-hmm. So we need to include those entities in the approval process for subdivisions.
Yeah, I'm still confused about that new high school going up, which is, really incredible as a facility, but the location of it gives me some concern when I think about public safety and I think about the infrastructure and the actual physical location. And we've talked about like the potential of school zoning that, the lights there. Now they're building up that little gas station area with like restaurants. There's apartments over here, going to be pedestrians, going to be a lot happening. Margaritaville right down the road. Like it just seems like it's a cluster of activity that might develop into something in the future. So I hope that, whoever's in charge of that, would that be the county or AlDOT? I mean, there's a lot going on, so I don't even know who's.
If you're talking about access to the Beach Express or
by Coastal Gateway up on
that would be the city, I believe. That's a city street, not a I believe, wireless state road.
And the expressway itself, though, it's like right off there. And then you have that side's Orange Beach, and then like that side a little farther is Foley, and that side's Gulf Shores. So it's at like this weird area where I feel like communication could possibly be better.
Well, that's the coordination with all those entities you just mentioned is pretty important to make sure it's all working seamlessly. And do I have answers for all that? No. The only way to fix that is make sure everybody's working together. Particularly Aldot's got to be in an equation because they own the Beach Express.
Yeah.
And they can dictate how a lot of that happens.
What experience do you have in planning and zoning in particular? Because I feel like for a commissioner, that's kind of the most important area. That I know there's their own planning and zoning commission, but do you have any background in that?
I do. I'm actually on the board of adjustments for the town of Manatee Springs, and I was on the board of adjustments for the county for about 10 years. In fact, a friend of mine is Steve Pumphrey, who's the chairman of the planning commission for the county, and he just endorsed me. We've been friends for a long time, but I worked with him at Volkert, and I understand the process. Having been on a town council and on the board of adjustments at 2 locations, it gives me a pretty good understanding of the zoning and subdivision regulations for the county. And I know what the issues are. I think we need to take a hard look at it. Now, the county's done a really good job of making our subdivision regulations more strict than they've been ever. So I'm going to give them a shout out for that. But it's a living document that needs to always change as our conditions change, as the population changes, as the areas develop. We need to change that document.
Speaking of living document, I think the county has a written 10-year plan, if I'm not mistaken.
Comprehensive plan.
Yes. How many years are we into that at this time, or do they just do another one?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what year we're at.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I mean, I just read something about that today. I was like, oh, there's a 10-year plan, like a printed, outline for things, which I think is important. And I know we did that in Escambia County, Florida, where I'm from. It was, especially in Perdido Key, had their own master plan too. Like that's something you need to be forward thinking and plan for that.
Well, I think you're actually required to have a comprehensive plan in place if you're going to get funding for a lot of things. So it's very important that we have a comprehensive plan in place, and all the municipalities have to have a comprehensive plan as well. So it's good that those are all meshed together, and I think it's very important and that all the commissioners and the municipalities, no matter what district you're in, that you have a good working relationship with all of them. Because, just because you're in District 4 doesn't mean you won't be talking to the mayor of Bay Minette about a road project that affect Bay Minette and doesn't have anything to do with where you're at in Orange Beach or Gulf Shores or Manatee Springs or Foley.
So something I would like to see in the future is just a suggestion for if you get elected, not so much a question, but things like that, like the master plan and how to communicate with, planning and zoning, how to do this stuff. I think the county, I would like to see better communication with what the county is actually doing in terms of, publicizing stuff online, news coverage, like front-facing communication with the public, and then also better communication interacting the public with the commission and planning and zoning and the staff a little more too, because I feel like the communication is where a lot of the disconnect is sometimes.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. I know when we got started, we had a lot of qualms with the county, and we went and kind of like raised hell at a meeting. Well, he did, not so much me, but I came with ideas and stuff, and I felt very dismissed. And that was, a year ago or something now. At this point, they all respond and communicate very well. But I feel like in terms of systems, not every municipality or like town will do that. The county got to that point where they, actively were like, okay, let's explain, we are doing this, this might be wrong, instead of like just being like dismissive, no, you're wrong, we already do that, here's this. They took the time to sort of educate me and direct me in the right way, because it's hard to navigate like county government.
I think it's really important for the county, and not just the county, all the municipalities as well, to feel like they need to work with the public and not be adversarial towards each other. There's no reason for that. We all need to be on the same page. No, I know we're going to disagree, and some people are going to be against a particular project, others are going to be for it. And there's no way for all of us to hold hands and sing together all the time. That's not going to always work that way. But what really needs to happen, in my opinion, is when people come to a public meeting, a public hearing, to say what they're concerned with, or to call a county office and want to find out information about a particular project. That staff, including the commissioners, mindset should be to try to help them get that information. Now, that doesn't mean we got to agree with you, but it is our job to make sure they get the information they need.
And at least respond. It's nice to even just have a response sometimes, and it goes a long way. And
just treat people the way you want to be treated. I keep saying that, but I truly believe that you treat people the way you want to be treated. If they go to the trouble of coming to a meeting and they come up and sit to a podium to speak, most people don't like doing that.
Right.
And if they're doing it, it's a big deal to them. So let's act like it's a big deal to them and appreciate them coming and treat them well.
Yeah. Totally agree with that.
Doesn't mean you have to agree with them,
Right.
but treat them with respect.
Yeah. And accessibility, I think that's about the biggest thing.
Yeah.
is there anything you think the county can do in terms of helping with affordability right now? I think that's a big issue on everyone's mind because things seem to be very expensive. Housing seems to be incredibly expensive. And I know that's, people say that's the markets. We can't do anything. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's a tough one. The market's dictated by the price of the land and what the cost of material and what they can get. And that's a supply and demand issue. And I don't think I don't want the county commission being involved in that. I want the public sector to handle that. Mm-hmm. I don't want us being involved in that. There's no way. I want the private sector to build things, and then if it's too much, then people don't buy it. And if it's the right price, they do buy it.
Okay. Be tight.
I mean, if they need to go to a different place in the county to get it where they can afford it, and then that's again supply and demand.
Right.
My family. I want to talk about my family. Like I said, I was born and raised in Magnolia Springs. Actually, I was born in Foley. They don't have a hospital in Magnolia Springs.
Yes.
But I've lived my 59 years in Magnolia Springs. Went to Auburn, graduated from Auburn. When I finished Auburn, I came back and worked at Volkert. And me and my wife been married 30 years. We've got 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy. All 3 of them have graduated from Auburn. And I'm very proud of them. My oldest one graduated from Auburn and UAB. And she's an occupational therapist and works with kids in Daphne as an occupational therapist. And my daughter, our middle one, graduated in finance, and she works for a software company that sells software and hardware to banks. And my son is the youngest, and he just interviewed for a job with the state to become a game warden. He graduated in wildlife science.
Nice.
And hopefully he'll be a game warden one of these days, because that was his last of three-part interview.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
And let's see. I am a part-time farmer. I got a 4-acre pecan orchard that I take care of, and I try to grow pecans. And what else? I guess that's it. All I can think of.
Yeah. I wish I had 4 acres to grow stuff.
I'm sorry. My website address is Brett Gar, And my phone number is 251-377-4486. And email address is brett.gar@gmail.com. You please contact me at any of those anytime you want to.
All right. Thank you so much for coming out here today. And the primary is on May 19th. And get out and vote on May 19th. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.